And then we started getting a lot closer, and I was like, okay, she's actually really cool. And I was obviously really nervous because this day I was planning to ask her to be my girlfriend. She was like, I'm actually really not feeling good. I was like, it's all right, like we've got 20 more minutes, we may as well make the most of it. I see her head drop. Obviously I thought she was dying because I didn't know she had this condition.
And we're recording.
All right. It starts off in a sticky situation. I finished high school and I wanted to do Camp America. So I signed up and then I met this girl and we started dating. And then she wanted to come along to Camp America. So I was like, okay, great, that's cool. And then she signed up as well. And then it turns out she was not the nicest of people. But we'd already made plans for after camp. We were gonna go to Venice together. But I was like, I cannot do this. So I broke up with her. Obviously she was distraught. But the messiest thing was the fact that we had plans together after camp. But the camp went for 3 months. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna have fun with my friends. And then I met another girl. And then we started getting a lot closer and I was like, okay, she's actually really cool. And so we were like, okay, well, you know, let's do something after camp, because she was from England. So if I had just gone back to Australia, that would have been really sad. And so I had already booked a plane to Venice and we were like, okay, well, let's go to Europe. We had a look at our budget and we were like, okay, we'll go to Croatia. And I had to book a flight from New York to Chicago, Chicago to Venice, Venice to Amsterdam, and then Amsterdam to Croatia. So that was the whole thing in itself. All of them are self-transfers and I obviously didn't speak Italian. I almost missed my flight. Anyway, eventually ended up getting to Croatia, figure out how to communicate with like a taxi driver where I wanted to go, just based on like one image of a map. And I eventually got there, it was great. Like, we weren't dating at the time, but I saw my now ex-girlfriend and I wanted to ask her to be my girlfriend. So I planned a whole day. It was like 2 days in, I was like, okay, we're gonna go to this island just off the coast. It's gonna be so nice. Like, I'm gonna plan it all. I booked like the ferry to the island. Then I was gonna have a little day. That morning we woke up, I was like, I've got this whole thing planned. She's like, oh my God, that's so amazing. Turns out I booked the wrong ferry tickets. So that was the first bad thing that happened that day. So she had to buy new ones really quickly and we had to run down to the dock and we almost missed our ferry, but we got on the ferry and I was obviously really nervous because this day I was planning to ask her to be my girlfriend. And so I was like, I want it to be good. And then we got to the island and she has POTS, which means like you get either low sodium or low sugar. So she faints really easily and I didn't know this. And she was like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit like, you know, lightheaded. And I was like, oh, you'll be fine. And I was like, let's just go jet skiing. Like, it's gonna be so much fun, don't worry. Like, and so we got on the jet skis and it started off really great. And then I was like, do you wanna have a go? Because I'd kind of been hogging all the fun. She was like, yeah, sure. So she starts and she's like, this is really great. And then she was like, I'm actually really not feeling good. I was like, it's all right. Like, we've got 20 more minutes. We may as well make the most of it. I see her head drop. And I thought she was like playing around. I thought she was joking. So I was just like, you know, I laughed but then the jet ski started like doing donuts because she'd like leaned on one side. So it started spinning round and round. And I look in front of me and she's like passed out, like she's fully unconscious. And I'm thinking to myself, like, we're like 300 meters out to sea. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I had to like lean in and kind of like hold her up and then like steer with one side because the throttle was kind of stuck. So I was trying to just kind of like circle around and like hold her up, and the last thing I wanted to do was fall overboard because I've also got like a massive fear of like deep water and I couldn't see the bottom. I don't know what it is. It's just like what I can't see. I can just imagine like some sort of creature like coming up and like grabbing me. So I was like, I'm not getting in the water. Like if she falls in, like the thought of me having to jump in, I probably would have, but like, oh man, no. Yeah, so that was kind of freaking me out. And obviously I thought she was dying because I didn't know she had this condition. And she hadn't been taking her tablets. I just kind of held her as she like slumped into my body. But yeah, I don't know, I like managed to turn the engine off because it was like connected to her hand and it was like pulling down. Like it was just like one of those throttles and it was like pulling down. So I like stopped the engine and I don't know, just kind of sat there with her hoping that I hadn't killed someone. She like kind of slowly regained consciousness, but she was feeling really sick and threw up all over me. And I didn't know what to do. So we just sat out there for a while until one of the guys hold her and like take her in and I had to bring it in. The whole mood of the day was ruined. And I was gonna like take her out for dinner, but then we ended up just going back. Almost missed the ferry home because it took so long for her to like feel better. We had to get like a taxi from one side of the island to the other. And then, yeah, and then we got back and I kind of just told her, I was like, look, I had this whole day planned. Like, I thought it was gonna go amazing. Like, and I was kind of like stuttering and like mumbling on words, and I think she could tell. And then I was just like, well, I don't know, I really like you and I'd love it if you'd be my girlfriend. Yeah, and I think we just ended up like buying like a cheap bottle of like rosé and just like eating Doritos and watching like a movie or something, which was honestly just as nice. But yeah, I think she just thought it was funny. Honestly, 'cause she felt really bad because she hadn't told me, because obviously I was freaking out, but she was like, no, this happens all the time. I was like, great, that's amazing. I'm so glad that I know that now.